In September 2005, the remote deserts of northeastern Ethiopia began to shake. Hundreds of earthquakes rippled across the Afar region. At first, they seemed routine. This was, after all, one of the most geologically active places on Earth. But within days, something extraordinary happened. The ground split open. A massive fissure, nearly 60 kilometers long, tore across the desert floor. In some places it widened by several meters. Entire sections of land shifted sideways. The crack was so vast it could be seen from satellites orbiting hundreds of kilometers above Earth. It did not form over centuries. It formed in days. Scientists were stunned. This was not just another earthquake. It was the visible birth of continental rupture. The fracture occurred in a region known as the Afar Depression, one of the harshest environments on the planet. Temperatures regularly exceed 45 degrees Celsius. The ground is stained with sulfur and salt. Acidic springs bubble through mineral crusts. Volcanic ridges cut across the horizon. This is a place where Earth's crust is unusually thin. Beneath Afar, molten rock rises closer to the surface than almost anywhere else on land. The region sits at a tectonic triple junction, a rare meeting point of three enormous plates. Here, the African continent is under tension. And in 2005, that tension reached a breaking point. At first glance, the 60-kilometer fissure looked like a simple fracture caused by an earthquake. But seismic instruments told a deeper story. Magma, molten rock from Earth's mantle, had forced its way upward into the crust. As it intruded, it pried the land apart like a wedge driven into wood. The crust didn't merely split. It was pushed open from below. This was not destruction alone. It was construction, the earliest stage of a new ocean basin. Near the site of the Great Fissure rises one of the most persistent volcanoes on Earth, Erta Ale. Erta Ale is home to a rare and mesmerizing feature, a permanent lava lake. A glowing pool of molten rock churns inside its crater, sometimes for decades at a time. Few places on Earth allow scientists to observe magma so directly. But Erta Ale is not just a spectacle. It is evidence that the crust here is thinning. That magma is rising. That the land beneath Ethiopia is being pulled apart. The Afar region lies at the intersection of three tectonic plates. The Nubian Plate, the Somali Plate, the Arabian Plate. This configuration is known as a triple junction, one of the rarest tectonic arrangements on the planet. To the north, the Arabian Plate is slowly moving away from Africa, creating the Red Sea. To the southeast, the Somali Plate is beginning to separate from the Nubian Plate along a vast fracture system called the East African Rift. The Afar Depression sits at the crossroads of this tectonic divergence. It is ground zero for continental breakup. Unlike isolated catastrophic quakes, Afar experiences earthquake swarms, hundreds of smaller tremors clustered together. These swarms are not random. They signal magma moving underground. When molten rock forces its way into cracks in the crust, it generates seismic waves. The rock fractures, shifts, and adjusts. In 2005, satellite data revealed that the crust had stretched several meters in mere days. The continent had moved. Not metaphorically. Physically. Continental breakup follows a sequence that unfolds over millions of years. First, heat rises from deep within the mantle. It weakens and thins the crust. Then tension pulls the land apart. Fault lines form. Volcanoes erupt. Valleys sink. If the stretching continues long enough, the continental crust tears completely. Magma fills the gap and cools, forming new oceanic crust. Eventually, seawater floods the basin. A new ocean is born. The process that created the Atlantic Ocean is the same one now beginning in East Africa. The Red Sea was once a continental rift similar to Ethiopia's. Millions of years ago, Arabia was attached to Africa. Gradually, rifting separated them. Magma rose to fill the void. Water poured in. Today, the Red Sea continues to widen by centimeters each year. What is happening in Ethiopia may represent the early chapter of that same story. If the East African rift continues to widen, the Somali Plate will eventually detach. Somalia, eastern Ethiopia, and parts of Kenya and Tanzania could separate from the rest of Africa. Between them, a new ocean basin would form. The Horn of Africa would become an island continent. But this transformation will not happen overnight. It may take 5 to 10 million years. The crack of 2005 was not the end. It was the beginning. Millions of people live along the East African rift system. They farm its valleys. They build cities across its faults. They sleep through its tremors. For them, the rift is not abstract geology. It is shaking walls. It is volcanic ash in the air. It is land that subtly sinks and fractures. And yet, life continues. Rift zones bring hazards: earthquakes, eruptions, ground collapse. But they also bring opportunity. Geothermal energy thrives where magma rises close to the surface. Ethiopia has invested heavily in geothermal power plants that convert underground heat into electricity. The same forces tearing the continent apart may power its future. Destruction and creation are intertwined. With modern technology, scientists can measure plate motion to within millimeters per year. GPS stations anchored to bedrock reveal that the Somali plate is moving away from the Nubian plate. Slowly. Relentlessly. At human scale, it is imperceptible. At geological scale, it is monumental. The continent is not static. It is alive. Human civilizations measure time in decades and centuries. Geology measures it in millions of years. When we say Africa is splitting, we must think beyond lifetimes. Mountains rise and erode. Oceans open and close. Continents assemble and disperse. Earth is dynamic. The Afar Depression simply reveals this truth more clearly than most places. Continental breakups are usually ancient events, preserved only in rock records. But in Ethiopia, we are witnessing one unfold in real time. The 60-kilometer crack of 2005 provided a rare glimpse into the mechanics of planetary transformation. Few generations in history have observed a continent in the act of dividing. We are one of them. Despite dramatic headlines, Africa is not about to tear apart tomorrow. There will be no sudden catastrophe in our lifetime. But beneath the Afar Depression, magma continues to rise. The crust continues to stretch. And the future ocean continues its slow preparation. The crack that shocked the world was not an ending. It was a signal. A reminder that beneath our cities and borders lies a planet in motion. In the scorching deserts of Ethiopia, the Earth is writing the next chapter of its geography, not in ink, but in fire. And though millions of years will pass before the ocean arrives, the story has already begun.
Subscribe Info Beyond Borders now for more mind-blowing knowledge.